What's up, YouTube family? Lord Red here with another review brought to you by Co-op Arcade. Today we are reviewing Motorsport Manager. This is a racing management game where your job is to create and develop your team to be the top tier racing team ever in the world of Destruction Derby. No, I'm just kidding. This game is based off of F1 racing. I am not a racing fan myself, so I couldn't tell you the difference between F1 racing, Formula racing, NASCAR racing, dirt bike racing, and Destruction Derby racing. Because that's a thing, right? Anyways, let's just go through the couple tabs here. I'm going to show you what I like and dislike about this game and see if it is something that you might want to pick up for yourself. Now, being that this is a management game, you do not do any racing yourself. You simply develop your team, your cars, your racers, your mechanics, and your headquarters to be the best that you can possibly be. You start the game off, you create your own character. You create a nice little backstory to kind of give you perks if you're an ex-racer, if you're a politician, if you have nothing, to give you no perks at all. It kind of sets up the play for how you're going to manage your team. You know, if you go for a political backstory, then you have more influence on when the politics come into play. So you can vote on new tracks. They can vote on different engine types. They can vote on if you can refuel your vehicle or not during pit stops. Because I know in F1 racing, you can't. I don't think, anyways. Looking at the vehicle, you all drive the same vehicle, which is pretty standard in racing. But what sets us apart from other ones is you can design certain aspects of your car. And everything that you design gives it a better performance in that certain division. So if you have really good wings and terrible engines, you're not going to go very fast, but you'll take corners extremely well. Obviously, you want to develop all these as best you can, and it gives you a nice little ranking as where you sit compared to the other teams. So today we're playing as Catano Sports, and our car is kind of mid-range. Our engine sucks a lot, because you can see we're 10th out of 10. But other things have been developed a little bit better. Now this is just a pickup game I started real quick. My actual game, everything's pegged out because I've dropped too many days playing the game. But as you develop your parts, the better engineers that you have hired and trained, the faster that they will develop these parts. You can see that they take a certain amount of days, in-game days, to develop. So the better engineers have, the faster these go. It also costs less if they have that perk for it. Once you develop these parts, you can actually fit these to your two individual cars. Now, I recommend that you develop these cars separately, as in not making them the exact same with the exact same parts, because the racetracks are different. Your drivers are different. You want to try to cater these cars to how your drivers are. If you have a driver that's outstanding with high speed and straightaways, you might want to give him a car that has better cornering to offset his deficiencies in cornering. If you've got a racer hindsight that's really good at cornering, you might want to give him a car that's much faster so he can do good on the straightaways. The tracks are all different that you play through, so you want to kind of mix and match these cars so that they do really well depending on how the track is. If you have cars that are exactly the same, they usually place about the same, you know, first and second, fourth and fifth, 12th and 13th. But if you stagger the parts in the vehicle, you might have one car that does extremely well and places first, but the other car might not do so well. But again, this is a team racing game. It's not team as in co-op, which I wish it was. It's a single player game, but your racing team itself. You want to get points so your team can actually win the division. So you can see I've got two drivers that are currently placed 8th and 9th for Catano Sport. I can look over here and see that my team is placed 2nd, but we haven't raced at all yet, so that means nothing. Let's go back and take a look at these cars, because as we develop these cars, you can fit these parts to very specific things. So once you start developing new brakes, new engines, new wings, you will see multiple options selected here. You might have 5, 10, 15 of these parts. And depending on how you've developed these parts, some will perform better than others. Some will have more reliability than others. Your reliability is fairly important because as you are on the racetrack, your reliability goes down as you're driving these vehicles. And if these things drop down to the red zone, they have a high chance of failing, which would mean your driver will be out of the race or crash and possibly injure your driver. And then you got to bring in your backup driver, which is never quite as good as your primary driver. Now, these are all things that you can fully develop and customize. You can train your drivers via your headquarters. If you have an upgraded headquarters, they train faster. They can train on their cornering, their braking, their acceleration. So again, every aspect of this game you can tweak and fiddle with, which this is why I love this game. Again, I'm not a racing fan. I don't know anything about racing, but I know that this game is outstanding. it's worth a few dollars on Steam that it is to pick it up. There is some DLC. Some of it is free. They just came out with a new one, GT series. That was, I think, $15. But again, definitely worth the price. Here on the screen, you can see where we are developing our parts. So say we have a part that we want to increase the performance on. We will click on these and it'll increase the performance up to the max rating. It tells you how long it takes. If we want something that's going to be more reliable, we can find our parts that are least reliable and drop them on our reliability engineers, and they will increase the reliability up to 100%, which means they will have a less chance of breaking down during a race. Now, if these parts break down during a race, you can do a pit stop and your team will swap out those parts. But I'm not a car mechanic, but I know that if you got to swap an engine in the middle of a race, it's not going to take you a 5-second pit stop. You'll be in there for a long time, and that's not good for your racing ability. You can drag the slider to see if you want to work on reliability more or if you want to work on the parts more. Typically now with my reliability sitting about 80%, that's enough to finish a race barring something really bad happening, which it does. You have random events, cars touch, cars collide. Hell, you might run into a bird and your wing falls off and then you got to pit immediately because you can't race without a wing. You can do per driver. If I want to work on just Jenny North's vehicle, I can do just her vehicle here. I can do Javier's, or I can do all together to get the best of the best out of it. We kind of touched on the headquarters. This is where you develop new buildings that give you different perks. They improve little aspects of your team to make it just a little bit better. And then once you build the building, you can then upgrade it to higher levels to unlock more parts. Excuse me. So you start with basic parts. You can unlock better parts, best parts, epic parts, and eventually legendary parts, which are the orange pieces, which give you an astronomical amount of speed and power in your vehicles. Taking a look at our team here, you can see that we have our 2 drivers plus our backup driver. Your lead designer tells how fast your parts design when you're making new parts for your vehicle, and your mechanics we just saw increase the performance and the reliability. Marketability is a big thing because the more you win, the more sponsors you're going to get, and the higher your marketability, you can get better sponsors. So some sponsors, like we all know, the cute little stickers on the side of a car, they give you money either for a place that you do, like this guy gives you 16th and above, he'll give you 200 grand. Or you've got these fixed payment sponsors that give you a set amount, like 300,000 per race. Both are critical. These ones tend to be a little bit smaller. These ones, as you get a better marketability and better sponsors, they will give you, depending on your place, like first or second place, they'll give you $1 million, $1.5 million, which is critical because upgrading a car gets very expensive. As we looked earlier, if I want to design a new part, I'm looking at $1.5 million for a new engine, $1 million flat for a gearbox, so it gets pricey. Same thing with the headquarters. If you want to build new buildings, you're looking at a hefty price tag. So these buildings you don't develop all at once. You'll play this game across many seasons. You will go through many drivers and mechanics as they age and get older. Once they break a certain threshold, I want to say it's 40, they start getting negative traits because they're getting old and slower. This guy right here, -2 to everything because it's terrible. Scouting, you can go and scout the other teams in all the different racing series to see who has the best drivers. We've scouted quite a bit of them. So if I find a driver in another team that is better than my drivers, I can go and say, hey, let's talk. He doesn't want to talk to me. We can find somebody else who might want to talk to us, and we can try to negotiate a better wage and better bonuses so they will come work for us so we can get the best drivers on our team. We can also do the same thing for staff. We can go and take other people's engineers and designers. Typically, that's easier said than done because they get paid pretty well when they're top tiered. So we can afford that kind of money starting off. You might look like you can, but you can't because money goes real fast. Through the finances screen, you can set up here how much money you want to save for the next year's vehicle. If you go cheap, what happens is when the season's over and you start a new season, you get a brand new car. So this much money per race that you put away depends on how much money you can spend on different suppliers. So you'll get a fuel supplier, you'll get a tire supplier, you get parts suppliers, and the amount of money that you can buy the suppliers for determines the starting performance and reliability of your parts. Now when you develop your parts through the game, as I improve the performance, that stays through the season. and I will keep my parts. But reliability drops back down to a default value, usually 60, 50%, because you have a new supplier and you have to go through your reliability mechanic again to get those parts back up. So every time you start a new season, it's not quite starting a new game, but you're kind of resetting the reliability of your parts, so you have to develop back through it. And as you go through the different races, those parts get better and better, and you start performing better, and hopefully by the end of the season, you are in first place with your team and your driver, because they get a sweet bonus and pool of money if you place first and second with your team and your drivers. Again, this is just it's a racing simulator, because you're not actually doing any racing. What you're doing is just managing the team so that when you get to the races, the drivers themselves will race the cars. But even then, during the race, you tell the drivers how to drive. Am I going to drive fast? Am I driving slow? Am I driving safe? Am I getting really aggressive? During the pit stops, what kind of tires are you putting on? Are you putting on wet tires, slick tires, ultra soft tires, medium tires, hard tires, depending on what kind of track it is? Is it a track that tears through tires because it's super rough? You want to put a hard tire on there. Is it a soft oval track? You can use ultra soft tires, get super grip on there, and they last a little bit longer. During your pit stops, you can change out all the parts. If they have broken down, you can refill your vehicle. I mean, this game just got everything right. The only thing that I found personally that I didn't like about the game is when the cars are racing, you watch them through a third, like a bird's eye view. You're looking down at the vehicles racing around the track. I wish they would have implemented a first-person view. Even though you're not racing, it would have been great to be sitting in the vehicle watching these cars go around the track, so you can see when they're passing, when they're getting blocked, when they touch somebody else and they damage their vehicle. But apart from that, there's so much to customize on this game. It's simply amazing. So if you like games that are micromanagement, any kind of management game, I definitely think this is worth a buy. I mean, the game is simply awesome. There's so much customizing to do. Every season is almost like a new season, because your drivers are changing. Other teams have their drivers changing. Mechanics change. It's so dynamic. So even though you place first in one season, you might get 18th in the next season because you had to swap out a driver because he got hurt, or he retired, or he became a monk. These things happen. I mean, there's so much random that happens in this game. It's incredible. It took me quite a few playthroughs to actually get a consistent first place of the season. As you do that, if you do get first place of the season, you are able to move up to a different championship. There are 3 championships. The European Racing is the bottom, so it's got a small audience and a small prize fund. Once you place first in the European Racing Series, you can move up to the Asian, and then eventually the World Motorsport, which has the biggest prize fund. This is given through all the winners, but the first place obviously gets the most money. You can check out other teams. You can see what their drivers are doing. You can scout out their drivers to see how well they do. You can scout out the team principal to see what they're doing. Another cool thing is, say you've got a team and your team is just not that great, and you want to move, you can take your person, because this is who you actually control. You are the manager. And my job now is secure, but say I don't like my team. Say I just can't get my team in line. I've got some pretty crappy drivers, which in this case I don't. I can always go and check out other teams and see if they are hiring. Like right here. Silver Racing and the European Racing, Lockhart and International GP. This is actually part of the expansion right here. But I can apply for their job, and if I'm doing a better job than they are, then they will actually hire me and fire their manager, and then I take over that team with their drivers, their mechanics, their car, their headquarters. So it changes the whole dynamic of the game at that point. So again, it's a management game. You don't actually race. It is a single player game. I really wish it was a multiplayer game. Interesting fact is this game developed as a phone app. It was in the Android store under the same name, Motorsport Racing, where you watch little bubbles race on the track. And it was fairly customizable, but once I found that they had a PC version, I was hooked day one. So if you like management games, I definitely think this is worth a buy. It's only a few dollars in the Play Store. What, 15, maybe 20 bucks? Definitely worth the cost. You will have hours and hours and hours of gameplay on this. And trust me, once you get going into it, you get a race under your belt. After that first race, you want to get to the next race, and the next race, and the next race, and then finish out the season. And then it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're saying to myself, I really need to go to bed, but I need to do one more race. And then it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and your kids are waking up, and your wife's coming out saying, why are you still up? You're going to get another race in, I promise you that. So check it out. I definitely think this is worth a buy. This game is like an awesome factor of 10. I really can't say enough about this game. I can't say anything negative about this game. It's simply amazing. And even coming from a non-racing fan, again, I don't like racing. I don't see the point of watching racing. But this game is marvelous. It's absolutely marvelous. So take my word for it and go pick it up in the Steam store. If you don't like it, you got 2 hours. You can always try it out and take it back. But it's definitely worth your time and money. Thanks for watching this review. If you like this, hit that like and subscribe button. And stay tuned for more. We're bringing them your way. This is Lord Red with Co-op Arcade, signing out.